The letter shook in Elena Brooks's hands. Across the polished glass conference table, Victor Hale leaned back in his chair, surrounded by 12 senior executives, and smiled like the outcome had already been decided. "Go ahead," he said. "Read it out loud. If you can finish it without breaking down, I'll pay you $1 million." A few people laughed. Not loudly, just enough. Elena stared at the sealed envelope. Her face turned pale. Then she placed it back on the table. "No," she whispered. Victor's smile widened. "Then I guess you know why you're really here." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Elena looked straight at him and said something that froze the entire room. "I wrote that letter." Silence. Victor's smile disappeared. And suddenly, the $1 million was the least important thing in the room. Elena had worked at Hale Medical Systems for 14 years. Not as an executive, not as a scientist. She worked in the company's mailroom. Every morning before sunrise, she unlocked a small office beneath the main lobby, sorted thousands of envelopes, signed for deliveries, and made sure important documents reached the right hands. It was invisible work, the kind people only noticed when something went wrong. Elena was 51, a widowed mother of one, and she never complained about being overlooked. After her husband died in a highway accident 12 years earlier, the job had helped keep food on the table while she raised her daughter, Nora. She knew she wasn't perfect. She was late sometimes when her aging car refused to start. She had a stubborn habit of doing things herself. And whenever someone asked how she was doing, she almost always lied. "Fine," she would say, even when she wasn't. But everyone in the building knew one thing about Elena. If something important crossed her desk, she treated it like it mattered. Maybe because she understood what a piece of paper could do. A hospital bill could destroy a family. A college acceptance letter could change a life. And one letter, she knew, could sometimes say the words someone had waited years to hear. The trouble began on a Monday morning. Victor Hale, the company's CEO, had been under enormous pressure. Hale Medical Systems was about to lose a major government contract after months of complaints about delayed emergency equipment. Victor wasn't cruel, but pressure had made him sharp, impatient, and lately, he had started seeing every mistake as proof that someone else wasn't working hard enough. That morning, an internal audit uncovered a problem. A confidential letter sent to the board 6 years earlier had never reached its destination. According to the tracking system, the letter had passed through the mailroom. Elena's mailroom. Victor called her upstairs. At first, she thought it was about a missing package. Instead, she walked into the largest conference room in the building and found every executive waiting. The sealed envelope sat in the center of the table. Victor tapped it with one finger. "Do you recognize this?" Elena looked at the handwriting, and something inside her went still. "I recognize the name," she said. Victor raised an eyebrow. "Then perhaps you'd like to explain why this was found yesterday inside a locked storage cabinet beneath your department." Elena stared at the envelope again. She didn't answer. That was her first mistake. To Victor, silence sounded like guilt. The room filled with whispers. Elena's supervisor lowered his eyes. Someone from legal began taking notes. Victor folded his arms. "This letter contains information that may have prevented a disastrous decision 6 years ago. If you withheld it, intentionally or otherwise, the company has a serious problem." Elena finally spoke. "I didn't withhold it." "Then read it." She hesitated. Victor noticed. That was when his frustration turned into arrogance. "Read this letter," he said, his voice hardening, "and I'll pay you $1 million. A nervous laugh moved around the table. Victor continued. "If it's so easy to explain, explain it." Elena's fingers touched the envelope, but she didn't open it. Instead, she looked at the date. 6 years ago, June 14th. Her breath caught. That was the day her daughter had been in surgery. The room blurred around her. Suddenly, she remembered everything. The rain against the hospital windows. The vending machine coffee. The doctor saying, "We're doing everything we can." And the phone call from the mailroom. Elena had rushed to work that morning because a major delivery was expected. Nora had begged her not to leave the hospital, but Elena needed the overtime. They were behind on rent. She had promised to come back before surgery. She never made it. Not because she didn't want to. Because a truck carrying company documents had crashed on the highway, and the entire delivery arrived damaged, soaked, and mixed together. Elena spent hours separating envelopes by hand. Then came the call. Nora's condition had suddenly worsened. Elena ran. She left the unfinished mail in the locked storage cabinet. and she never returned to work for 3 weeks. When she finally came back, another employee had taken over. The damaged shipment was gone. Elena assumed everything had been sorted. But apparently, one letter had remained behind. One letter. Victor watched her face change. Now do you remember? Elena nodded slowly. I remember that day. Then open it. She did. Inside was a single handwritten page. Victor expected her to read it. Instead, Elena looked at the signature and closed her eyes. Then she said, "This wasn't written to the board." Victor frowned. What? It was never meant for the board. The room shifted. Elena turned the letter around. On the bottom was a name. Margaret Hale. Victor's mother. Victor stared. His mother had died 8 years earlier. Elena looked at him. This is why I wouldn't read it. Victor's confidence cracked. What does my mother have to do with this? Elena swallowed. Everything. The letter had been written during the company's worst financial crisis. At the time, Victor was preparing to shut down a small manufacturing plant in Ohio. 200 employees would lose their jobs. His mother had been against it. But Victor believed closing the plant was necessary to save the company. According to the letter, Margaret had asked for one more chance. She had secretly visited the plant and discovered something Victor's executives had missed. The workers had developed a cheaper way to produce emergency monitors. Her letter contained the details. In one final sentence, Elena looked down at it again. Victor's voice became quiet. Read it. This time, nobody laughed. Elena shook her head. I can't. Why? She looked directly at him. Because it's from your mother. Victor's jaw tightened. I told you to read it. Elena's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Then she said, You offered me $1 million to embarrass me. But some things are worth more than money. The room went completely silent. She folded the letter carefully. Victor reached for it. Elena pulled it back. Not until you promise you won't make this about finding someone to blame. That stunned everyone, including Victor. For years, Elena had been invisible to him, a woman downstairs who sorted envelopes. And now she was standing in front of him, refusing $1 million to protect the memory of a mother he still hadn't forgiven himself for disappointing. Victor sat down. Slowly. For the first time that morning, he looked tired. Not angry. Tired. Why would you protect me? He asked. Elena gave a small, sad smile. I'm not protecting you. She looked at the letter. I'm protecting the woman who believed you could still listen. Victor said nothing. Then Elena placed the letter in front of him. He read it silently. Nobody in the room knew what the final words said. But halfway through, Victor removed his glasses. His hand began to shake. 5 minutes passed. No one spoke. Finally, he looked toward the window and whispered, I closed that plant anyway. Elena nodded. I know. You knew? My brother worked there. Victor turned back. Another twist. Elena had never mentioned it. Her brother had lost his job when the plant closed. He had struggled for years afterward. Yet Elena had still come to work every morning and handled Victor's company mail with care. Victor looked at her differently now. Not as an employee, as someone he had failed without even knowing. I'm sorry, he said. Elena shook her head. No, don't apologize to me because everyone is watching. That hit harder than any insult. She picked up her worn handbag. At the door, Victor called after her. Elena. She stopped. The $1 million. For the first time all morning, she smiled. Give it to the plant workers' children. Victor stared at her. Elena added, My daughter got through college because strangers helped us when I couldn't. Maybe it's someone else's turn. Then she walked out. 3 months later, Hale Medical Systems opened a scholarship fund for families affected by the old plant closure. Victor named it after his mother. But the first scholarship recipient was chosen by Elena. Not because she was an executive. Not because she had demanded anything. But because one arrogant challenge had reminded an entire company of something they had forgotten. Never judge the value of a person by where they sit. The woman in the mailroom had carried a secret for 6 years. Not for power, not for revenge, and not for money. She had carried it because some things deserve to be handled with care. And sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who could take everything, but chooses instead to do what is right. Because real worth isn't measured by the money someone offers you. It's measured by the things you refuse to sell.